And welcome back to Niners Nightly on a Monday as Week 6 in the NFL wrapping up tonight at MetLife. Bills up 13-10 on the Jets about 45 seconds before halftime. And joining us on the UMA guest line, it's Chiefs Week to talk a little bit about the Kansas City Chiefs, a man who's been covering Kansas City sports since I was in college. Blair Kirkoff covers it for the Kansas City Star. He's in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, and he's with us on the UMA guest line to talk a little Niners Chiefs. Blair, thanks for the time.
Larry, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. I've been reading you for years, and it's funny. This is the first time we've ever talked, but we have a lot of similarities. So I didn't go to Appalachian State. I went to Sac State. And I wasn't born in Pittsburgh, PA, but I am a huge fan of the late, great Roberto Clemente. And you were a big fan of Clemente. And then I also played a little baseball in my youth. I saw you were a 3-year Letterman baseball player back in high school in North Carolina. And then lastly, but not last, but definitely not least, you have outstanding kids' names taste, because my kids are Anna, Kevin, Benjamin, and Christopher, and you have an Anna Ben. So it's an amazing. You're a very talented person, Blair.
That is pretty high on the list of coincidences, but yeah, that is amazing.
So you've been covering Kansas City sports for a long time. Did you ever dream in all those years of Marty having great regular seasons and crapping out in the playoffs that the Chiefs would ever settle on and have their own Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and clearly one of the great dynasties, maybe the greatest dynasty if they get it done this year, and get the three-peat? Did you ever think in any of those years, wow, someday we'll have it all?
No. And, not only the Marty years, which did change Kansas City, the face of football here in Kansas City. Marty got to Kansas City the same year I did in 1989. And football was terrible when he arrived, but he and general manager Carl Peterson changed football here, turned Chiefs games into events. It's when the stadium started selling out, barbecue, tailgating. It became a really, really big thing, but they had no success in the playoffs. And of course, that time included the Joe Montana couple of seasons. That was a high point for, the Marty Schottenheimer era. And even after Marty, they had a little bit of success with Dick Vermeil. Herm Edwards got them to a playoff one year. And even the first few years of Andy Reid, it seemed to be a little more of the same. They get good enough to win a division occasionally, get to the playoffs, but there was a ceiling of the Alex Smith teams in Kansas City. And then Patrick Mahomes came along and changed everything about football here and the way Kansas Cityans just feel about themselves, really, when it comes to their pro sports teams. Between the Royals winning the World Series, losing in 14 to the Giants, and then winning it in 15, and then the Chiefs winning their 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years, this really has been a golden era for professional sports in this market. And, unlike anything that's existed here in previous decades.
And yet, Kansas City largely is unstolen from. I guess what Poles came from there, right? So he's in Chicago, but
yeah.
But I mean, you think of all the different great coaches. I mean, Spags is there. Nobody seems like they want to give him a head coaching gig. Forever, Eric sleeping with Bieniemy was there, and he didn't get any love for a head coaching gig. Are you surprised that as much success as Andy's had there, that none of his proteges seem like they've been all that coveted by other teams?
Right. You're right. Eric Bieniemy was the poster child for that, and I think he still owns the NFL record for most interviews without landing an NFL job. So now the current offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, of course, was Mahomes' first coordinator, and then went on to become the head coach of the Chicago Bears, got a Mitch Trubisky team to the playoffs twice in Chicago, but was fired after 4 seasons. And of course, before Nagy, Doug Peterson was the OC, and he's, I think, probably in his last season at Jacksonville. But the enemy was the biggest head scratcher, and Steve Spagnuolo told me at the Super Bowl last year that he still wants to be a head coach, and has been a head coach for a couple of organizations without success. But I think he already has a Hall of Fame resume as an assistant coach with 4 Super Bowl rings. I'd like to see him get one more shot as a head coach, and I think he deserves that.
Spags was so complimentary of Brock Purdy in the aftermath of the Super Bowl. And I know people would say, well, come on, what do you expect him to say? No, come on. I thought he was genuine. I thought his compliments of Purdy were not like, it wasn't any way condescending, pat on the head kind of a thing. It wasn't pandering. I thought it was legitimate. I think he's genuine. And I think his comments and his positive review of Purdy was genuine. How do you guys view Purdy from afar? Obviously, you have the best quarterback in the league going on your end, but how do you guys see Purdy?
Yeah, look, I saw him in college, so I've been watching Brock Purdy for several years. Look, all he did was get the 49ers to the brink of a Super Bowl championship last year. If Spags doesn't dial up the pressure on that third, and I forgot what it was, 5 or 6 when they were down at the 9 or 10 or
third
so.
And 4. I think it was 3rd and 4.
3rd and 4. Was it from the 9? I can't remember exactly where the ball was.
Sounds about right. I'm trying to block it out.
Right. But had a guy open, had the play was there.
Yeah, Ayuk was there.
Yes, and if that if Spags doesn't bring the pressure, then Brock Purdy is a Super Bowl, could be a Super Bowl champion quarterback. Chiefs still would have gotten a possession if the 49ers had scored, but I think there's a ton of respect for Brock Purdy on the Chiefs side and from the Chiefs defense. We'll get to talk to the Chiefs for the first time since in a week and a half on Wednesday. Of course, they're coming off the bye week, and we haven't spoken to them since the aftermath of their Monday night game against New Orleans last week. But I think it is genuine, and it has to be. I mean, you can't be a slouch and have the success that Purdy's had in his couple years with the 49ers.
The Chiefs' defense. I mean, you guys have Mahomes and you have Reed. But the Chiefs' defense is the best. It's the best unit of the Niners D, the Niners O, the Chiefs D, the Chiefs O. The best unit is the Chiefs D, and I'm looking at their numbers. Week 1, they held King Henry 46 yards. Week 2, they held Zach Moss 34 yards. Bijan only got 31 in week 3. Dobbins only 32 in week 4, and they just held Kamara to 26 yards. That run D they have is no joke, huh? Nick Bolton and the boys?
Yes, exactly. It really is underrated and underappreciated. Bolton is the leader of the group as the signal calling linebacker, but I think it's really what's up front over the guards and center that make a big difference for the Chiefs. Guys like Mike Pennell and Tershawn Wharton are just, they take up so much space and create so much havoc in the middle, and are really forces for the Chiefs. So it really has been at least the start of the season, a successful venture in making teams a little more one-dimensional than they want to be. Teams that rely on the run, like Baltimore in the opening game. Listen, there's no doubt the Chiefs were fortunate to catch the Ravens when they did. Ravens are playing some really good ball right now, and I think the Baltimore went into a little bit of a panic mode in that opening game. But no, they have stopped the run really well. And this is a team that was worried about its defense coming into the season because of the loss of L'Jarius Sneed, the talented cornerback who signed with the Tennessee Titans, and a linebacker, Willie Gay Jr. also signed with the New Orleans Saints. So they had a couple of holes to fill, but they have Trent McDuffie has emerged as the top corner for the Chiefs. He'll follow a team's best receiver, and Drew Tranquill, who they got last year from the Chargers, has been terrific too. So defense is the strength. You mentioned it. Team with Mahomes and all the talent. He's off to a real so-so start. The defense is the primary reason this team is 5-0.
And it's and they've got great players. I mean, McDuffie and Snead were awesome. I love the I hated the Super Bowl, but I love the podcast that Spags did with Baldy and Gargano, where he kind of talked about the key elements of the Super Bowl, and he really shouted out McDuffie and Snead, and justifiably so. Those guys were awesome. And this year, I mean, yeah, you lose Willie Gay, you lose Snead, but you still got Chris Jones, you still got Bolton, you still got McDuffie, you got three, all-pro type players on all three levels of the D. What do you make of the red zone struggles? I mean, Mahomes has got 6 touchdowns, 6 picks, and the Chiefs are 30th in touchdown percentage in the red zone. The Niners are 29th, and there's a lot of hue and cry here. What's been the talk in Kansas City on the radio and, amongst the fans about their struggles in the red zone? It seems almost crazy when you have Andy Reid that you would ever struggle in the red zone.
You're right. It is crazy. They blew an opportunity in the Saints game when Mahomes threw from the 3, threw a quick slant to Juju Smith-Schuster. And if you can think back to the Patriots-Seahawks Super Bowl, the interception at the goal line, that's exactly what happened. The ball bounced off of Smith-Schuster, and it was intercepted by 325-pound
Colin Saunders,
former Chief, who took it back to the 35. So they got unlucky there. But for the most part, it just the old stuff isn't working the way it used to. The shovel pass from the 5 to Travis Kelce doesn't surprise anybody anymore. And as good as the Chiefs have been at times running the football, which has been true the last couple of weeks with Kareem Hunt, they're for whatever reason not getting the push inside the 5. So we've seen a lot of Harrison Butker this year. I remember earlier, I can't remember the game, but it was at Arrowhead, and Butker kicked a 19-yard field goal. And I turned to the person sitting next to me. I said, "That should never happen. You should never kick a 19-yard field goal. That means you had the ball at the 1 or the 2, depending on where how deep the holder sets up." But they did, because Andy Reid didn't have enough faith that his team could push the ball into the end zone from that distance. So it continues to be a problem. It was a problem last season for the Chiefs. It's a reason Harrison Butker's scoring 140, 150 points a year. He's kicking a ton of field goals because the Chiefs aren't getting it in from the red zone.
How does Andy keep this thing together? I mean, he brought in Kareem Hunt. Nobody seems like they have a problem with that. Chris Jones runs a little hot from time to time. It never seems like it gets out of hand. You had the whole Butker comments thing. That could have fractured the room. That didn't break anybody up. Andy's, had problems with his adult children and their problems off the field. That never seems like it enters into the mix. I mean, he just has a way of blocking out everything and keeping his team focused. How does he do it?
Yeah, you're right. You've got a good handle on that. That a lot makes for all those incidents make for good stories, and of course the biggest one of all. I mean, even tonight at the ALCS in New York, there's Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift taken in the game. So with the
right, didn't even think about that.
Yeah, we've had that
whole circus
to deal with. But whatever reason, it seems like the Chiefs, the players, coaches are managed to keep that stuff out of the building. Andy likes to talk about the building, right? And the practice facility, and that stuff seems to stay outside the facility. And I'll give the Chiefs credit on the players' credit for this. You're right about Harrison Butker. Had some comments that angered some people, some comments about politics that angered some people. That happened. That happened before training camp started. When he got to training camp, he didn't hide from it. He went up to the podium and answered questions about it for 10 to 15 minutes, and that kind of was it. Everybody wrote their stories and did their stand-ups and put it behind them, and it ceased to be a story at that point. And other things have happened in that regard. Travis Kelce still comes to the podium, and the Taylor Swift thing is so. We're so used to it now here in Kansas City that it's not a big story when she comes to a game anymore. We still take a photo, right? And cameras still find her. It's not the big deal it was a year ago. So, on another thought on this, one thing that Andy Reid and the Chiefs do, and I think more than other teams, you mentioned Kareem Hunt. He is back, and Juju Smith-Schuster is back with the Chiefs after playing here in 2022 and winning a Super Bowl with them. They have a tight end, Jody Fortson, who had been with the Chiefs for the previous few years, left them after last season, was with the Dolphins over the summer and into training camp, got cut. He's back with the Chiefs. They do an excellent job of reuniting players with this team, people that know the playbook, that know the coaches, and they find use for them. And they largely have been successful here in their return, their second chance with the Chiefs. So I don't know how unique that is. I don't follow that when it comes to other teams in the NFL, but Andy Reid doesn't hesitate to bring back players that were previously here and plug them right back in and have them contribute right away.
Blair, last one for you. We appreciate your time. Blair Kirkoff with us on the Uma guest line from the Kansas City Star as we look ahead to Niners-Chiefs Sunday at Levi's, the rematch of Super Bowl 54 and 58. The Niners have only lost 3 Super Bowls ever. 2 of them are to Mahomes and Reid. Not that Niner fans need to be reminded of that. But as far as the NFL trade deadline, we're about 2.5 weeks away. And what's Brett Veach going to try to get done? I mean, it seems like John Lynch has maybe popularized the midseason trade a little bit with the McCaffrey deal and some of the moves he's made. And why has he popularized it? Well, it's worked, right? I mean, these teams that have added pieces in November have oftentimes found their way through the playoffs and into the Super Bowl, and there's a lot of money to be made if you get to the Super Bowl. I expect the Niners to be active at the trade deadline. Do you expect Brett Veach to be active? And if so, who's he looking at? Who and what is he looking for?
Well, we ask ourselves that a lot here, what might happen. You mentioned Mahomes' stats, and one of the reasons he's at 6-6 touchdowns, interceptions, and a quarterback rating under 90 right now is this isn't the offense that the Chiefs envisioned going into the season. They added speed in the offseason by acquiring Hollywood Brown at wide receiver, and then drafting in the first round Xavier Worthy. And Worthy's been a contributor, and he's been able to flash his speed, and they like him. But now they're down not only Hollywood Brown, who was injured in the first play of the first preseason game, but also Rashee Rice, their leading wide receiver from last year. He's going to be gone for the year with the PCL. So if they've had to make, I know the 49ers have had issues with injuries, and the Chiefs have had that too. But for the Chiefs, it's happened at the position they really wanted to upgrade this year. So in each of the last 2 years, the Chiefs went out and acquired a wide receiver before the trade deadline. 2 years ago, it was Kadarius Toney, and he helped them beat the Eagles in Super Bowl 57 with a long punt return and a touchdown pass. And 49ers fans will remember that last year the Chiefs added McCole Hardman in the trade deadline. There's another former Chief that came back. He was with the Jets to begin last season, finishes the year with the Chiefs, and he catches the game-winning touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. So I do expect the Chiefs to make some kind of move before the trade deadline, picking up a wide receiver, but they only have – it has to be make some financial sense. They don't have much money under the cap, so I think a kind of a role-playing wide receiver is somebody we can see the Chiefs try to target here in the next couple weeks.
Interesting stuff. Blair Kirkoff with us on the Yuma guest line. Blair, thanks for the time, man. Outstanding stuff. Really appreciate the thumbnail sketch and breakdown of the Chiefs, and hopefully we'll catch up with you down the road. Thanks for jumping on KMBR tonight. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on. Great conversation.
Blair Kirkoff, Kansas City Star.